So this is an incredible topic and I'm very excited to get stuck into it with you. Self-awareness, and the part of self-awareness which involves exercising self-compassion. So again, looking at the 6 seconds emotional intelligence network, 3 pursuits, the key pursuits of EQ in action. We've got know yourself, choose yourself, and give yourself. And self-compassion involves all of these pursuits, particularly knowing yourself. So clearly seeing your own talk inside your head, your own thoughts and feelings and actions is crucial for good self-awareness. So let's first talk about empathy. And empathy is something I'm sure you've heard about. It means connecting with someone else's emotional experience. It means you take their perspective, and it means you understand and experience what they're feeling. So, for example, they tell you that their dog has just passed away and they're feeling distraught. A person that is sympathetic will say, I'm so sorry for your loss. Don't worry, you can get a new dog. It's fine. You can get a new one. I'm really sorry. That sucks. You can get a new job. An empathetic person sits with that emotion and feels it and connects with the time where they have experienced loss, whether that is a dog or a pet, or whether it is a person or a moving school, a friend, losing touch with someone, any kind of loss. They access that emotion and how they felt, and they are experiencing the same thing with that person. You've seen some people who cry when other people cry. It doesn't always have to present that way, but that is empathy. And a person in that situation wouldn't be saying, don't worry about it. I know don't worry about it. You can get another dog. A person with empathy is saying, I feel your pain. I feel that. That is so hard. I don't know. I don't even know what to say. I'm just going to sit here with you. How can I help? What do you need? Let me be here. Let me hold your hand. Someone with empathy doesn't have the answers. They just have the presence. The thing about empathy is, though, you can't have empathy. It is exhausting to have empathy if you don't have self-compassion first. It is a prerequisite to empathy, because empathy without compassion leads to burnout, leads to emotional exhaustion, to the point where you can't do it anymore. One must be passionate to oneself before external compassion. That's by the Dalai Lama. You must have self-compassion before you can show it to anyone else, and that is just a fact. And self-compassion is something that comes up for a lot of people. I have had a struggle with it my whole life, and I feel like the work that I do around this area has transformed everything about my life. It is a practice, and it doesn't just happen. We're not born, well, maybe we're born self-compassionate, but we unlearn it pretty quickly through messaging. And that's no one's fault. It's just something that we need to be mindful of. A lot of our self-talk happens unconsciously. We're not aware of what we're saying to ourselves. So what even is self-compassion? Self-compassion is simply being kind to yourself. It's self-compassion. And that doesn't mean you let yourself get away with everything. You have no expectations of yourself. Being kind to yourself means that you care for yourself when you're in those vulnerable moments. Remember, in our last talk, we spoke about being in that stadium and playing that match. Being kind to yourself in that moment means if you lose a point, you're not going, you're an idiot. You're so stupid. How could you do that? I knew you would do this. Being kind to yourself means you lose a point and you think, what can I do right now to be kind to myself? What does my inner child need to be told? You wouldn't berate and yell at a 5-year-old. So self-compassion means you're not berating and intrinsically yelling at yourself. So being kind to yourself in instances of pain and failure, and also connecting to the common humanity, recognizing that you are human and everyone is human. Brené Brown, a famous researcher, is famous for saying, people are people are people. Everyone is just human. And we all experience vulnerability, we all experience shame, and we all experience suffering. So, connecting to your common humanity means you recognize that you're not perfect and no one is, and you are not alone. And mindfulness means that you're able to be a witness to your thoughts. You're able to recognize your self talk without becoming attached to them, without thinking, my thoughts are the reality, my thoughts are my truth. Actually, we watch our thoughts. Our thoughts are our brain trying to make sense of the world. Okay, they're stories. Remember in our last talk, we spoke about thinking isn't knowing. So mindfulness means finding that separation between yourself, your thoughts, feelings, and actions, and being able to hold them, without judgment and be aware of them. Self-compassion involves all of these things. And Kristen Neff is a famous researcher who really brought self-compassion alive with her years and years of research. And a famous quote from her, which sums it up really nicely, is, with self-compassion, we give ourselves the same kindness and care we'd give to a good friend. And I really encourage you to go to selfcompassion.org, Kristen Neff's website, and explore all of her amazing content and resources for yourself. So, an exercise I wanted to do with you now is, what imperfections make you feel inadequate? So, you may like to listen to this and then pause this and reflect on it in your own time. But the first part of this exercise, which is from Kristen Neff's work, is first look at yourself in the mirror. And it's really hard to do. A lot of people can't look at themselves in the eyes in the mirror. They find it too intense. Look at yourselves in the mirror for 5 minutes, set a timer, and think about what imperfections make you feel inadequate, external and internal. It doesn't matter what they are, okay? Don't be afraid of saying them, writing them down. It's not the truth. Recognize these are your thoughts. These are the stories you're making up. Everyone has imperfections, something that they don't like about themselves, and something that makes them feel insecure, whether that is something about their internal world or their physical world or anything in their life. We want to dig deep and find out what they are for us. And now just feel them, okay? Just see those emotions as exactly what they are. Don't try to solve them. Don't ask why. Just see them. Write down the emotions that are coming up for you. This is a very intense exercise. So maybe you need to find a space where you feel like you're able to do this. Try to think of at least 3 emotions, because as Joshua Friedman from 6 Seconds asks, what else are you feeling? There are always layers. Part 2, write a letter to yourself from the perspective on an unconditionally loving imaginary friend. So imagine your friend read or saw those imperfections that you're talking to yourself about. What would they say to you? Someone who loves you unconditionally. Maybe you're thinking of your mum or your dad, or maybe you're thinking of your best friend, your teacher and mentor, anyone, your sibling, anyone that wants the best for you, or it's imaginary, it's someone that doesn't even exist. What exactly would they say to you? Okay, how would they tell you how much they accept you? And I want you to then read this back. Okay, how is this friend showing compassion for you? How is this friend being kind to you? Right from their perspective. And then part 3 is feel this compassion as it soothes you. Read that letter back and then put it down for a while and just let those words sink in. Kristen Neff is also quite famous for encouraging physical touch. So even stroke your arm, hold your own hand, give yourself a hug. The actions of physical touch actually biologically they compel us to feel more empathetic, more compassionate, more nurturing. So treat yourself like you would a best friend that is feeling these feelings and thinking these thoughts. And just experience that process of being that source of compassion for yourself. Louise L. Hay wrote a really famous book, um, and she is one of my favorite authors. It's called Heal Your Life. And a famous quote from her is, "No person, no place, and no thing has any control over us, for we are the only thinkers in our mind. When we create peace and harmony and balance in our minds, we will find it in ourselves. We will find it in our lives." So I love this quote because it reminds us that you have the power to control your thoughts. And it is so important because the way that you think about yourself triggers the way that you feel about yourself, triggers the way that you act, the way that you treat others, and the way that you treat yourself. Think, feel, act, they're all dynamically interrelated. And it is so important to be aware of each part. So take a moment to think about now, how do you speak to yourself? Now, I know I struggled with this a lot in my teenage years in particular. I think it is an extremely difficult time for self compassion, particularly when you think about the comparison and the scarcity and the shame that often comes up. The comparison, especially in terms of social media, we've never been more exposed to other people living their lives. And I know I was very, very, very good at comparing myself and still am sometimes. Um, and that would trigger thoughts in my mind about, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. All of those, remember from our previous chat, those outside points of view that come from critics or come from hecklers that we know are not the truth and are not the feedback we need or should be listening to. So how do you speak to yourself? Kristen Neff has a really important process and something to work through whenever you catch yourself thinking in critical self-talk. Notice when you're being self-critical. Step one, just notice. So say you ate yourself sick, you ate a whole bag of, cookies or whatever, and your thoughts are, I'm disgusting, I'm fat, I'm so weak, can't believe I broke my diet. You're taking it on as I am. Not I just ate a bag of cookies. You're not finding that separation from the behavior and yourself. Your self-talk is saying, I am weak. You are identifying with that behavior, and that's called shame. So notice when you are slipping into shame patterns of self-talk. And then soften the voice with compassion, not judgment, and that's key. So there's no point softening the voice if you're going to go, oh, that's negative self-talk. Don't think like that. That's so stupid. You're so stupid. Stop thinking like that. Shut up. That's not self-compassion. That's laying judgment on top of the self-talk. So soften your voice. Okay. Kristen Neff, even sometimes she encourages using a term of endearment. Darling, sweetheart. Think of it as you're talking to a little child inside of you. Okay. Yourself as a 5-year-old child who's just made a mistake. Not saying that eating a bag of cookies is a mistake, whatever this situation in your life may be. Soften the voice. Say, I know you're worried about me. This voice, talk to that voice. I know you're worried about me, and I know you're feeling insecure and afraid, but I've got this. Okay, I'm going to speak now. Soften it like you would talk to a child. And then reframe. In psychology, they call it cognitive reframing. Reframe your observations in a friendly, positive way. I noticed that we just ate a bag of chocolates because you thought you were sad and you thought it would make you feel better, or you were bored and you were looking for something to do. That's okay. Now I'm noticing it's making you feel not so good in your body. So why don't we go for a walk? Let's go for a walk and let's listen to some nice music. Hugging yourself, hugging that child and patting them on the back and soothing them, that is reframing. Okay? Naming the observation without the judgment. And holding your own hand, again, those physical gestures of warmth. Okay, stroke your cheek if no one's looking. Hold your hand, hug yourself, spend time with yourself, even just, stroking your arm. Anything that activates your sense of nurturing, okay, how you would treat a child. And that sense of forgiveness is so crucial when we're talking about self-compassion. The important thing is that you start acting kindly, because then the true warmth and caring will eventually follow. If you are very skilled at critical self-talk, which I know I was in my teenage years, and this would have been really difficult for me, just go through those motions. Just pretend. And eventually, the more you pretend, the better you'll get at it and the more natural it will come to you. So go notice, soften, reframe. Notice, soften, reframe. Noticing it, softening it, reframing it. Go through those 3 steps and consciously, and even if you have to pretend at the beginning, eventually it will feel natural. And when you are self-compassionate, you can give to others, you can give to yourself, you can make your greatest dreams come alive, and you can live your best life.